God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
You know, since I started covering the Karen Reed case, since I learned about Karen Reed and the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe, few things have surprised me. It's very rare that I am surprised. And I have to tell you, last night, midnight, when I heard this, I was actually speechless. This is our beloved Melanie Little reviewing a Massachusetts State Police chain of custody report from the Justin Root case, a case from 2020, a case that involved the Norfolk County DA's Detectives Unit. And interesting, you might recognize some of the names in this report.
We have learned that the Norfolk County DA's office technology ages in reverse. They used audio recordings in 2021 for Dr. Turk, but not in 2022 for John O'Keefe. No, they didn't. In fact, for the murder of a Boston police officer, they actually did nothing by the book. They did nothing.
For those who are less familiar with the John O'Keefe case, this is the sergeant in the Norfolk County Detectives Unit, Yuri Buchanan. He is the boss of the lead case investigator, Michael Proctor. And we had to hear this from him during Karen Reed's second trial because the DA's office refused to bring in the lead investigator from the John O'Keefe case to answer questions in court. Michael Proctor.
Did you plant evidence?
Absolutely not. And I'm laughing because it's such a ridiculous accusation. It's something I would never do. I've never done.
You know, most people would.
And there's no evidence of it.
Is that true? Oh, and the reason why Yuri had to testify and not Proctor is because he was fired because of his conduct in this case.
Do you have any kind of log to document what was happening or who was wearing those items of clothing during that 6-day period before it was bagged into evidence? Any kind of log?
I don't have a document logging the clothing laying out there. It was documented in reports and processing, I believe.
There's no chain of custody report, which apparently they've got a 10-page long one when their officers shot a man.
Have you ever seen a log? I'm not talking about a report after the fact. I'm talking about a log, real-time log, indicating who may have come in and handled or touched or manipulated those clothes in that 6-day span of time before the fact.
I have never seen a log like that, no.
Look at how detailed this chain of custody report is. I mean, I'm blown away. Let's look here. Item number 1, current custody, stored in location, upper deck. Collection date and time, February 7th, 2020, 1600 hours. Collection purpose, evidence collected by David DeChico. DeChico's name is all over the Justin Root case too. Collection location, BPD HQ. Originally, what does it say? BI, emergency room from victim. Packaging, quantity, item type, 1 brown paper bag containing jewelry. Detailed description, 1 metal necklace, 1 white metal ring, 1 yellow metal ring, 1 passport, 1 piece of plastic, red-brown stains, butcher paper.
I'm going to change gears. Trooper Proctor, you personally collected John O'Keefe's clothes from the hospital at Good Sam in Brockton, did you not?
I did.
Once you ultimately got back, I don't want to have to take you through the entire, everybody knows where you went.
Okay.
Sergeant Buchanan's already testified. You get back to Canton at some point, correct?
Yes.
Ultimately, were the clothes transported into your facility
Yes,
at the DA's office?
correct.
Okay. What did you do with them after that?
We brought them to the evidence
I'm
processing.
going to ask you what you did, not what we did, what you did.
Sergeant Buchanan and I brought them to the evidence processing area, laid out butcher paper so the clothes could dry, put them on there in that area.
Here's an item that was collected by Michael Proctor. One brown paper bag containing one cellular phone.
And then I brought 2 cell phones to Trooper Garino so he could try to attempt to extract the phones.
Collected by Michael Proctor on February 7th of 2020 at 19:20 hours. Do you mean that when they collect a cell phone, they're supposed to put it into a chain of custody log? Who collected it? What time they collected it? Where they collected it? Where they put it?
What did you do with the clothing after it was dried out?
So the next day, Trooper DeChico arrived and brought them into the permanent evidence area where only him and another trooper in my office have access to. So they were secured from that at that point.
So you didn't book them into evidence?
I did not know.
When they're booked into evidence, there's supposed to be a log of that, correct?
I'm sorry?
There's supposed to be a log of that when they're booked into evidence, correct?
Yes.
You're the case officer on the case. One of your responsibilities is to make sure that chain of custody is maintained throughout the entirety of the investigation, all the way up to a courtroom, correct?
Yes.
Where's the log of those items being booked into evidence?
There was a chain of custody from when they entered the DA's office, and then when Trooper DeChico created a label for them, but also put them in a secure facility.
Can you show me where that is?
I'm not the evidence officer. I don't have that.
I see. So you didn't bring a log with you of any sort concerning the chain of custody of these items, correct?
No.
The fact is, we don't have a single document establishing the chain of custody for those items between January 29th and February 4th. That's correct, isn't it?
That is absolutely not correct.
Where's the log of the document logging what happened to it?
We seized the clothing. It was in our possession. It was transferred for processing.
Sergeant, I'm asking you about a log, a written piece of paper, something that looks like this. It's got writing on it that logs the item between January 29th and February 4th. That doesn't exist, does it?
We did not create a log to document the documentation, so it'd be redundant, really.
This is the way it's supposed to be done, and apparently they know how to do it. Every time somebody touches the evidence or moves the evidence or collects the evidence, there is supposed to be a log made. This is the log. Genetoxic is shocked.
Does a physical log exist starting from January 29th, 2022 to today?
Yes.
Where's that physical log, sir?
I'm not an evidence officer, so I don't know how that. Yeah. So I don't know how that's generated.
Right. So as the case officer, you have no idea where an evidence log is that has something as insignificant as, I don't know, the victim's clothing.
Pants. They collected some pants. Yuri Buchanan is in there too. He's collecting pants.
The fact of the matter is, the evidence log attendant to this case regarding those clothing items starts on March 14th when they were taken to the crime lab, correct?
That's when the clothing was transported to the lab.
And that's the only log we have of what happened to those clothes between January 29th and today.
Objection.
Overruled. Do you know that?
I don't. I'm not off the top of my head, ma'am.
Item number 3. More evidence collected by Michael Proctor, 2/7/2020 at 19:05 hours. One brown paper bag containing one USB flash drive. 2 green and gray flash drive owned by Justin Root. And here's where they put them, in the upper deck. And they were holding them for investigative purposes. They all know how to do it, because the next one was the next piece of evidence was collected by Matthew Dunn. He also testified. He was involved in the John O'Keefe investigation.
I want to talk for a second about the searches in Brian Albert's front lawn that took place on and after January 29th, 2022. As the case officer, Trooper Proctor, you also took control of the taillight pieces that were ultimately claimed to have been found at that location, correct?
Not in all searches.
You indicated on direct examination that you personally participated in 2 searches at 34 Fairview, one on February 4th, one on February 10th. Is that right?
That is not right.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank the Trial Channel for their footage and for all they do. I could not have put this together without their editing of the trial and their markings of these videos. I can't even communicate how grateful I am to them for their efforts. So thank you so, so much.
Which of the pieces that were found were you responsible for taking control over?
The 8th, 11th, and 18th.
So who had control over the items that were found before the 8th? You said the 8th, 11th, and 18th, right?
Those are items that I had found on those days and that I had processed and essentially bagged and tagged them and handed them over to our evidence officer. There was multiple days that troopers were out there looking for more evidence.
So there would be a log of that too, right?
Again, how the system works as far as the evidence comes in, I can't speak to that.
Stuff that they collected from Justin's house. In the third drawer of the dresser in the bedroom. It was a plastic paintball gun package. And exactly when they collected it, where they collected it, and where they put it. It's stored in location bin number 1. I mean, I can't even believe that there's such a thing because they acted like they had no idea what anybody was talking about.
So you have no idea what the chain of custody of any of these items are, the clothing or the taillight material, from January 29th until March 14th, when the evidence log starts. Is that what you're saying?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
There is a log. I mean, it's in our system where labels are created and it generates the time and date that a label is created. And then it shows that it's at our office in a secured facility and then it was brought to the lab on the 14th.
Well, what happens if the label is created and it says something like, I don't know, February 4th? What happened to the items before February 4th?
They were stored in a secured facility, a secured room.
Says who? Where's the log?
Objection.
Sustain.
David DeChico collected 1 discharged cartridge casing and 8 white metal Smith & Wesson 40 caliber casings from in front of the Star Market on Boylston Street in Chestnut Hill in the parking lot median bush east of Body at exactly at 8:30 on February 8th. And he collected them and he put them in bin number 1. This is insane.
So you have no idea what the chain of custody of any of these items are, the clothing or the taillight material, from January 29th until March 14th, when the evidence log starts. Is that what you're saying?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
There is a log. I mean, it's in our system where labels are created and it generates the time and date that a label is created. And then it shows that it's at our office in a secured facility and then it was brought to the lab on the 14th.
Well, what happens if the label is created and it says something like, I don't know, February 4th? What happened to the items before February 4th?
They were stored in a secured facility, a secured room.
Says who? Where's the log?
Objection.
Sustain.
And it's 10 pages long.
This is me reminding you to like this video, like the video, comment, subscribe, like this video. Even I, knowing everything that I know about this case, have had trouble believing that there could be a large-scale, widespread, deliberate effort on the part of these police officers to frame an innocent person. But I'll tell you something. The evidence here, it's not good. It is not good at all.
Here's Tully. Tully's in the mix too. Can't leave him out.
As far as that transportation or transmission from the temporary area to the permanent area, what, if any, sort of documentation is generated in regard into that?
There's no notation from one location to the other as allowed by policy. There's no notation from one location to the other as allowed by policy.
Now, with respect to the items that were observed and photographed by you on January 29th during the search team search, what happened with those items from the scene?
They were collected, placed in an evidence bag, and brought back to our offices to be secured.
Note that Brian Tully is deliberately being asked these questions to account for the fact that there is no chain of custody log. And this is how this piece of garbage group of people try to get around their deliberate effort to hide the chain of custody in this case. And you have to ask yourself, why would they have to hide the chain of custody?
And if you could, as far as the evidence sort of system is conducted with regard to this case and other cases and investigations within your unit, can you explain to the jury that process of sort of when an item is seen or an item of evidentiary value is seized, what happens with it?
Well, first, to provide context, by policy, I am the evidence officer for the unit, and I have assistant evidence officers who assist me in the caretaking of the evidence. So we'll use this particular instance where evidence is collected at a scene, it's memorialized in place, placed in, if it's the right shape and the right condition, in a paper bag with some notes placed on the outside of the bag, transported to our office where it's secured either in a temporary locker or the permanent evidence area.
Funny how he's just leaving out one small detail, the chain of custody report. What a total piece of shit this man is. Just to remind everybody, we are talking about the death of a Boston police officer who was found on the front lawn of another Boston police officer. You, sir, should be ashamed of yourself. What a piece of garbage human being you are. Oh, and this guy is buddies with Paul O'Keefe. They played football together in college. What a joke you are, sir. You are a joke.
And as far as when it's taken into custody and put into a bag, what is sort of the protocol or the policies with regard to how that bag is marked or what is done with that bag once you have the item contained there?
There's certain piece of information that will typically go in the bag, the name of the person who is picking the evidence up, put in the bag, the date, time, location, a brief description of the evidence contained in the bag. It will then be taped, and initials will be placed on the tape to memorialize who did the taping and the date in which the taping occurred.
Now, with respect to the evidence storage at your office, can you explain to the jury sort of how that's managed, where it is, and how items are checked in to evidence once they're seized?
We have an evidence tracking system. So as evidence comes in, we place it into the system. A label will be created and placed on the outside with the case number and an item number specific to that bag. It will be placed into the evidence room, which is locked in 2 different methods and has an alarm code pad, and you need your ID pass to swipe in order to enter. And only certain members of the unit have access and know the code to the alarm. Me obviously being the one, and the 2 assistance evidence officers.
And by the way, let's not forget the piece of garbage Adam Lally, the prosecutor in this case, who tries to find a way to make all of this seem like completely legitimate status quo, tries to make all of it sound so official. You, Adam Lally, are like the lowest form of life on earth. I mean, the lowest form of life on earth.
Is there a log of that?
Not to my knowledge.
What possible conclusion can you come to when they deliberately did not keep a chain of custody in this case? They went to great lengths to lie to you, to all of us, to prove to you that they're incompetent, that they don't keep evidence logs, that Yuri Buchanan says he's never even seen an evidence log. He has no idea what a chain of custody report looks like. So what conclusion can you come to? Why is it that they are lying to your face, bending over backwards to tell you that they don't know what chain of custody means? This wasn't Michael Proctor's doing. He's the fall guy, and he's a moron, I'll give you that. But this is not Michael Proctor's doing. Michael Proctor does not, never had the authority to make these decisions. But you know who did? And you know who was in charge of this investigation for real? Well, thanks to Adam Lally's questioning and Brian Tully for his willingness to tell us who was in charge, we know exactly who was in charge of this operation, don't we?
Now, with respect to those conversations you mentioned that you had yourself and what the then current chief, Kenneth Berkowitz, who, if anyone else, was involved in those conversations?
The district attorney.
That would be Mr. Morrissey, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that abnormal for him to be involved in conversations in regard to a police department and any sort of appearance of conflict?
No, it's not abnormal for him to be involved.
And as far as his involvement in his conversations, as far as you're aware, did they evolve, or were they any greater or less than the conversations that you had with Chief Berkowitz?
No, they were the same conversations.
And that means that this is a criminal conspiracy that involved the district attorney, the chief of police, and the head of the Massachusetts State Police Detectives Unit for the district attorney's office, who, by the way, is still very involved with that DA himself. And isn't it interesting that the son of the former chief of police, Kenneth Berkowitz, Benjamin Berkowitz, resigned from his position as sergeant with the Canton PD in September.
Now, with respect to those items that you recovered from 34 Fairview Road at the roadway in front of it, where were those items located with respect to each other?
They were, in total, within a 5-foot area. So if you're looking at the house, from right to left was how they were found. First was that first picture you displayed, which was the red piece of plastic. About 3 feet from that was the Nike sneaker. About 1 or 2 feet to the left of that was the clear plastic, and just next to that was another piece of red plastic.
The report indicates that John O'Keefe came to his final resting place about 7 feet from the roadway, and that's what you based your diagram on, correct?
Yes.
Who told you that number?
I measured it from my diagram.
You should say that again?
I measured it from the diagram.
Okay, what I'm asking is how did it get on the diagram? In other words, who told you that his body was 7 feet from the roadway?
Well, wait, I was told by Lieutenant, was it Gallagher, Paul Gallagher, Captain PT. He told me this is where the body was found. Okay. So I used my devices to mark that location.
Okay, but before you used your devices, he just pointed someplace on the ground and said he was about here, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Did Lieutenant Gallagher tell you that Lieutenant Gallagher never saw John O'Keefe in place at the scene? Did he say that?
No.
Did Lieutenant Gallagher tell you that the first officer on the scene estimated his body at being approximately 15 to 20 feet from the roadway?
No.
We'll get back to Trooper Paul a little later.
More stuff. Tully, Fanning. Spent projectiles with look, they even have the serial numbers for the spent projectiles. Can you believe it? And a glossy $100 bill picture belonging to Justin Root. All being held for investigative purposes. Tully's there again. The usual suspects. Wow. Just wow.
And let's be honest here, guys. The judge in this case.
And Judge Cannoni prevented Michael Easter's testimony. Yep. She would not allow in a procedural expert for Karen Reed's defense.
Knew it. She's seen all the evidence that we were prohibited from seeing. That the defense was denied. And why do you think they're trying to keep those sidebars away from us? Well, I got a little clue about that yesterday when I was analyzing the statements of Ms. Karen Reed.
I'd find something and I think, well, can't we go talk to this person? And they'll say it didn't happen that way. And now I know better how tough it is to get, especially in my case, how tough it is to get something admitted. Even going into trial with my seasoned attorneys, there were things we thought we could show, like an exhibit, for example, like one witness, Christina Hanley. The key part of her forensic report at the MSP lab, and she's just a scientist, a civilian, but the glass on the bumper that was photographed on the bumper does not match the cocktail glass. Does not match the cocktail glass. So that means it's from another piece of glass. So that had to have been two breaking events. There's the glass that was found around John's body, the base, I think it was Lank that pulled it out with his gloves on, or maybe it was Buchnick, the base of the cocktail glass. That is scientifically proven by the state police, Christina Hanley, not to be the glass that was on the bumper.
On the bumper. But I think the jury was left in the first trial with the impression that it was the glass.
Yes, because it's so confusing. Nothing's referred to as the cocktail glass or the bumper glass or the lawn glass. It's 7-1 item 5
right.
or item A, or 7-12 items A, B, C, D, and E. And then there's more glass found by Proctor, and that's 7-13 item A. And when you have the scientist who, my guess is worried that we're trying to impeach her when we're in fact not, we just wanted her to present the report.
Right.
And this is, I don't know when she testified, but it's mid-trial, it's 2 p.m, it's 80 degrees outside, and you see jurors' eyes glass over, and I know what's coming. I know what that report is, and it doesn't come out cleanly. So we were thinking going into trial, we could summarize what she was saying using her own acronyms and abbreviations. Here's 7-12, here's 7-13, no match, something like that, and that exhibit was denied.
What a surprise.
So we were learning on the fly things we
and
thought.
That happened at sidebar, correct? Because I don't remember.
It happened at sidebar.
And that happened at sidebar.
This is more evidence that Karen Reed's civil rights were violated and that they know how to do an investigation and they know what chain of custody is.
This isn't just about Karen Reed's civil rights being violated. This is criminal conspiracy. And you know why? Because they didn't like what the evidence showed. They didn't like what it looked like. They didn't like the optics of this.
It is the defense counselor's duty to protect the rights of the individual, as it is the prosecution's duty to uphold and defend the laws of the state. Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in their cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright.